Welcome, Pewter Report readers and listeners, to another edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius. I am Jon Ledyard from pewterreport.com, along with my good friend, the one and only JC Allen in the house. What's up, JC? How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. It's another, beautiful day down here in Florida. Can't complain. Weather's perfect. Training camp starts in 6 days now. So I think the rookies already reported yesterday. So rookies are already in the building. They reported on the 18th. So I mean, we're already under work.
I think it's like catching Bucs fans by surprise here, right? Like they've kind of been out of the little loop here. I don't know if that's if they're ready for this, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's really snuck them on us kind of quick. I mean, Carmen Vitale, shout out to her. She tweeted out that all the coaches are already in the building, so things are getting rolling. We've got the White House visit tomorrow, the ring ceremony on Thursday, and then training camp starts on Sunday. It's here. Football is back, and man, I'm very excited. I don't know about you.
I'm extremely excited, and I'm extremely excited that for the however number of almost a full year now of shows, Celsius is the title sponsor of the Pewter Report podcast, and we love the products. I got some Celsius. I drank one yesterday. Yes, I got some. I'm up in PA, by the way, for people who are tuning in and have missed that. I'm up in Pennsylvania for another 2 weeks, and so I'll be up here. I'm actually going to miss the start of training camp. So you, JC, and Matt and Scott will have it all covered, and we'll have our team, the Pewter Report team, will be down there covering everything, and so that will be great to have you guys there at the event. But I'll miss the first week because I'm actually one of my best friends is getting married up here, and I'm in the wedding, and my daughter gets to be in the wedding too. So that's a little side. Yeah, she's a flower girl. So a little side story there. But anyway, I've been without my normal stock of Celsius because I was going to bring that much on the plane. I did get a couple bottles, but so I've been able to find some Celsius, drink it, which has been tremendous. And I think I might even get some new flavors I've never tried up here in Pennsylvania. So yes, very excited about that.
I tried the raspberry acai green tea today for the first time. I wasn't sure I was going to like it, but it's non-carbonated. But it's really, really surprisingly good. Yeah. And I'm not a big raspberry guy, but I was like, this is the one flavor I haven't tried. Let me get it. Let me try it. And it was phenomenal.
Yeah, they do some great stuff. There's no question about it. If people who don't know, Celsius powers active lives every day with essential functional energy. They are the number one energy drink out there. There's no letdown. There's no sugar. It tastes unbelievable. There's tons of different flavors. You got to check it out. Go to Celsius.com, use the store locator, find out where they are near you, or click those Celsius ads over on pewterreport.com, the banner ads you'll see up on the site. Click those and get yourself some Celsius.
I'll tell you, too, I drink a Celsius every day. I'm not a big coffee drinker. I don't drink coffee. So in the morning, I start my day with a Celsius. It gives me the energy that I need to get going, get moving, especially when I've got to get two kids, ready for school and get them there on time, get myself to work on time. So, Celsius, if you haven't tried it out, looking for an alternative to, one of those other energy drinks or coffee in general, you gotta try it out. And
I'm gonna need some Celsius, Josh, because and I see people saying cancel the wedding. We need all hands on deck, John. I appreciate that, Bucs time. Here's the thing: I am gonna do I can't do that, but I can do the next best thing, which is drive through the night from the night the wedding ends. From Pennsylvania, Erie, Pennsylvania area, all the way back to Florida, not to be there in time for the August 1st training camp. I won't make it in time, but I'm going to drive with the family, with two kids, a 4 and a 1-year-old, mind you. Drive through the night
Boston,
to make it. Look, you know what I mean? To make it back in time for Bucs training camp on August 2nd. So that is the plan. So yes, the boy is committed.
Is that Amish country up there in Erie?
No, not Erie. That's on the other side. That's the eastern side, I think. Yeah. Not Erie though. Yeah, so it'll be a hike, but going through the night, I'll be able to shave a couple hours off of it, and your boy can go without too much sleep. So I'm looking forward to it. Speaking of things we're looking forward to, here we go. Bucs training camp previews are starting today. I am excited about this, Josh, because when we get to start talking about these kind of things and we're doing these previews in earnest, it means seeing football players on a football field playing actual football is not far off. So very excited about that and excited to be able to get into some of these matchups right away. Let's start with the wide receiver room because it's the best. It's probably the best position group on this team. It's probably the best wide receiver room in the NFL. We're mainly going to focus on camp battles, either for starting spots or for roster spots. So there'll be two different sections of battles. There are very few starting spot battles. But I want to touch on something and let it segue us into the rest of our show here about the wide receiver group, at least. What do you think happens? We know the top three, they're set. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown. If no injuries occur, those three will be your snap leaders for the Bucs at the wide receiver position at the end of the year. What happens with the distribution of snaps between Scotty Miller and Tyler Johnson and Jaelon Darden? Let's put into the discussion. And let me preface this before I let you respond. Remember, Scotty Miller, even though we all agree he's the wide receiver 4 on this team, and he's the 4th best receiver on this team, there's the reality of his usage against Tyler Johnson's, and that Tyler Johnson is more versatile usage receiver, and Scotty is kind of a one-trick pony a little bit. Not saying he couldn't be more than that. I think he could be and can be. Maybe he will be. That's the real question. That will he be, or will they just ask him to keep doing what he does really well, let Tyler Johnson continue to grow as more of an all-around guy in case they do end up losing Chris Godwin? Or does Tyler Johnson have a hard time getting on the active game day roster because he would be the wide receiver 6 if Jaelon Darden's the return guy, and wide receiver 6, you're not activating him for the 5 offensive snaps he might play, or activating him for all the special team snaps he'll play. And Tyler Johnson hasn't exactly stood out on special teams yet. So a ton of questions kind of mixed in there, but what happens at wide receiver 4, JC?
I think the biggest thing that you mentioned was the last guy you mentioned was Jaelon Darden. Because, we've seen the speed that this guy possesses, his ability to get off the line, how quick, how shifty he is. He doesn't have necessarily the long speed Scotty has, but if he can develop that style of his game, and he's also a returner, it might even push Scotty down the depth chart. It's a lot to ask a 4th-round pick to come in and be that guy right away, develop that chemistry. So in the long term, though, I think that's a type of role he can take. But I think Scotty, the way he had progressed last year, we saw it at camp. I mean, his connection right off the bat with Brady, and then going into the season, I mean, we talked about it. He led the team in yards at the halfway point of the season. And a part of that was because Godwin was injured, and obviously Antonio Brown wasn't on the team. But I still think there's a way for them to use him in certain aspects. You saw it at the end of the season, even with Antonio Brown, even with Chris Godwin. I think he still takes over that 4th role spot. The question then becomes, as in your secondary question, is if he's the 4th guy, who takes that 5th spot? Is it a Darden? Is it a Tyler Johnson? And, the Twitter sphere right here is still all about Tyler Johnson. That spectacular catch he made against the Saints will not leave their brain. And I don't think it's a situation where you try to cut a Tyler Johnson and sneak him on to the through the waiver wire to the practice squad. But at some point, if Darden does, and we talked about maybe them keeping 7 wide receivers. So, Darden does become the primary return man, he's active automatically. So you already have 5 receivers active. And then I think, much like other positions on this roster, it's really going to be game day specific. Can they use Tyler Johnson? Can they implement him in some ways that they can justify having 6 wide receivers active on the roster? And that's going to be the question going forward. How much does he progress during training camp to make them have to keep him on the roster because of how good he is and what he brings to the table? So training camp's going to decide a lot of these battles, a lot of these situations, and it's going to come down to the players to put the work in and show and prove to the staff why they deserve to be on the active roster week in and week out.
You bring up a good point about Tyler Johnson. He could impress them enough. Remember, it's not just training camp practices. That might not be enough. Now it's preseason games as well. I got news for you. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Antonio Brown aren't going to play a lot in the preseason. That's just the reality, especially with 3 of those games now. They're going to get their game 2 in the second game. They're going to get their probably other audition. They're probably not going to play at all in the 3rd game, maybe play a little bit in the 1st game. But it's going to be Tyler Johnson is going to be allowed to, especially with the depth they have, they're going to want to put him, test him and allow him to play a lot probably in the preseason. So he's going to get a huge opportunity. And if within that opportunity he balls out, now it becomes a struggle for the Bucs. How do we sit this guy on game days? Even if he sucks at special teams, how do we sit him if he's balling out like this? And if he can fill potentially 2 wide receiver spots in a given package for us, there's a lot of things we like about him. How do we sit him down? Maybe it's just like, you know what? We're just going to get the best that he has to offer on special teams. He'll probably be a weak link. We hope it doesn't bite us. Special teams doesn't matter quite as much as it used to, at least in terms of kick and probably even punt coverage, to be honest, these days. But that's to me is the question with Tyler Johnson because of what Paul's saying here. I wonder if Scotty's route tree can expand. And Paul brings up a good point. Until that happens for Scotty Miller, or maybe it doesn't happen, or maybe they don't even want it to happen with Scotty Miller, because they want him to focus on being as good as he can in his specific role right now. It leaves open options for other guys to get involved in the offense because Scotty is not this do-it-all number 4 where Tyler Johnson could be offensively, but he's not going to be able to stretch the field like Scotty will, and that's where his kind of negative. So Scotty and Tyler are kind of perfect complements of each other, but they're different, and so how much each gets used might depend on the matchup that happens that week. And there could be weeks if Jaelon Darden comes out and wows, all of a sudden now Jaelon Darden's got to be active, right? He's your return guy. Exactly. Now you have to have, who's wide receiver 6 on game day? So they keep 7 receivers. Is there a path for a guy like Justin Watson to work himself onto the game day active roster as the 6th guy where Tyler Johnson would have to sit for a week here and there because he's just not as good on special teams and he's probably not going to play on offense in that game?
Or not even Justin. You mentioned Justin Watson, but not even, I mean, we're already here crowning Jaelon Darden as a returner, but what if he shows throughout the preseason and throughout training camp that he's not ready to handle those primary duties? Well, now you're stuck with a guy like possibly Jaydon Mickens, and I'll have a bonus training camp battle for you guys this Friday before my recap on Saturday, detailing the return duties. And if something happens with Jaydon Mickens, because if you read the article yesterday that was put out by Pewter Report, he might be facing criminal charges and he might be off the team. But if Jaelon Darden, now we're at a situation where the team might really have no return man. So there's so many different layers of this with special teams. And if Tyler Johnson, you mentioned if he balls out and they have to, well, what if he doesn't ball out? What if he just does enough that, they can't risk passing him through waivers if they want to keep him on the roster and continue his development. But now you need someone to play that special teams role. So now you need 7 wide receivers and you're not going to have 6. How are you going to have, it becomes a situation. Does Scotty get sit for Darden to be a return man and Justin Watson to play special? I'm not envious of the position that the Bucs put themselves in that wide receiver group because they're going to make a lot of tough decisions. Yeah. And that's not even getting into some of the other guys who were on the practice squad. Jason Light on this very podcast said that he's really excited to see what Travis Johnson can do, former quarterback. I think it's out of Montana
State.
Montana State. Yeah. And, that's high praise. They liked him a lot. If he can develop too, now you're throwing him into the mix. So it's going to be one of the biggest battles, not necessarily for the bottom top 3, 4, but for those last couple and what they choose to do. It's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out.
It is, and as you answer this next part of what I'm going to kind of look something up that popped into my head. But Bucs Time 12 says, yes, Scotty compliments everyone with big plays, but he doesn't need to do the dirty work in the slot. He is not really that guy. No, he's not, and he knows that, and the Bucs know that, and they don't ask him to play in the slot because of that very often. And so it is a role for Scotty, and it's for a little bit more than that for Tyler Johnson. Someone said, Sam SoCal says, in my opinion, Tyler Johnson is going to surpass Scotty this year on the depth chart, mainly because of his better versatility. Scotty will be used for outside deep passes. Darden is going to take Mickens' spot. This is interesting, Sam, because I would say, and this is what I'm going to look up as you respond to this so I can make sure that I'm accurate in this. I don't know that I would even call it surpassing. The tricky part here is that Scotty Miller gives you something that's so valuable, you have to have it active on game days. Splash playability. I mean, think about the plays that this guy made. He just got very few opportunities. But a lot of the plays he made, even over the second half of the season, where he was the wide receiver 4 or 5 and barely playing, and sometimes getting out snapped by Tyler Johnson, his impact per game was greater because you can't replicate the speed that he brings to the field. He's one of the fastest players in the league. He can't replicate that speed with another player or by taking him out of the lineup or things like that. They need that in this offense. So, yes, Scotty Miller is less versatile, but what he provides is more valuable as a receiver. So his game day activeness is not in my mind, JC. Like, although I know what people are saying when they say Tyler Johnson could surpass Scotty on the depth chart, they're saying Tyler Johnson could out-snap Scotty Miller in a game on the depth chart. Well, that already happened last year, but I don't think it means Tyler Johnson is less likely to be inactive on game day than Scotty Miller, or more likely to be active on game day than Scotty Miller. To me, I think Scotty's more of a lock for game day activeness, even if he plays 8 snaps, because those 8 snaps are that valuable to what the Bucs are doing, where Tyler Johnson may not hold the same value offensively.
Exactly. And you need someone to take the top off the defense. And that's exactly what Scotty does. If you looked at some of the great articles that we had come out by Paul and Jack this week talking about route concepts and the go concept. You need someone that's going to be able to just go, take the top off, open things for underneath, keep the cornerbacks honest so they're not, crowding the line of scrimmage. So Scotty gives you that. And a lot of the things what you're saying, and I'm seeing the versatilities repeated over and over again with Tyler Johnson. A lot of it's funny because his versatility might just hurt him because you have two guys who are versatile in Antonio Brown and in Chris Godwin who can play pretty much anywhere, although John will tell you, Brown plays less in the slot, but it's still a position that he's comfortable in and can make plays from. Godwin, we know, can play anywhere on the field anytime. We saw a lot of Mike Evans towards the second half of the season playing some slot too. And when you have a player that's that versatile to pair with other players who are that versatile, who is not good at any one thing, but good at, a bunch of different. Scotty excels as a deep threat. That's what he is. That's his job. That's his role. Tyler Johnson doesn't really have a role. We don't know his role, but we know he can do many things well. He's kind of like the Ryan Gomes right now with the Bucs team. It's a little basketball reference there. But, it's going to be interesting to see how both of these two roles play together because do you want the guy who can fill in and do a little bit of everything if something should happen to Antonio Brown or something should happen to Chris Godwin, who hasn't been the perfect picture of health, throughout his career? Do you want that insurance policy of Tyler Johnson, or do you want to have that guy who's going to take the top off, be that deep threat, and allow you to work underneath to a guy like, Chris Godwin and Antonio Brown and let them make these big gains? And Giovanni Bernard, now that you got a true passing catching back, Scotty takes off for one route, makes corners creep back, then you hit him with a wheel route out to the running back. I mean, that can create a lot of room for him to run. Right.
Tony says Tyler Johnson isn't going anywhere. That's just silly. I'm not sure what that means. We haven't talked about him going anywhere. We're just saying in terms of his play, how much he's going to play, if he could be inactive for certain matchups. For example, like what I mean was when I say certain matchups, you look over the snaps counts from last season, Scotty Miller against Tyler Johnson, and see who played more snaps, especially after the bye week and after Brown was a little bit more established and they knew, okay, this guy's going to take this amount of snaps. There were weeks where Tyler Johnson outsnapped Scotty Miller. There were weeks where Tyler Johnson barely played. It really depended on the matchup. Like, for example, against the Saints in the NFC Championship game, Tyler Johnson played 12 snaps, which is not very many. And Scotty Miller this was the conference championship game against the Packers. Scotty Miller played 27. So a significant difference. Scotty Miller was playing way more in that matchup than Tyler Johnson was, probably based on game plan. Before that, though, it was Tyler Johnson against the Saints. It had been Tyler Johnson who played 15 snaps, and it was Scotty Miller who played just 8. So there was a difference week to week in terms of which player was more valuable to them at that given time. Now you have a guy like Jaelon Darden entering the picture as well, and he is going to probably, it's safe to assume, be a better upgrade offensively than what Jaydon Mickens was last year if you had decided to use him in that way. Given the fact they traded up from the 4th round, I'm guessing the Bucs feel that way about him. So we'll see how he develops too. But all that could create a logjam that defines roles kind of on game days. And so that's what I'm trying to identify here. Paul brings up a good point here. And if you haven't started to read, what'd you say, JC?
I was going to say, it's going to be really scheme specific who's going to be cut from or not cut, who's going to be inactive. It's really going to be game plan specific, scheme specific. What are they trying to do? A guy like Darden, you can use him in kind of a Henry Ruggs type style too because of his speed and his quick get off and his ability to just, make defenders miss. So it's going to really just, I think week to week, we'll see, Scotty might be inactive and then Tyler might be inactive. But
Right. There's a lot to this. Paul brings up a good point here. If you haven't checked out Paul's articles on pewterreport.com, he did a great article the other day on Bruce Arians' go route concept. And it's just a great opportunity to learn more about the offense you're going to watch for the next couple seasons. And you just watched last season. Like, it's a lot of stuff in place. And he teaches you in really simple terms and how you can identify them as fans watching the game. You can be like, oh, that's the play. Like, that's the one that, that's the concept. This is how it works. And this is why, that player was in this position, and just makes you a little bit smarter as fans. It's fun. So Paul's written some good stuff for us. He says, I think Tyler Johnson is going to struggle to see the field. Scotty offers something unique. While TJ is good, Godwin and AB do everything Johnson does, but at an elite level. I think that's a fair point, except for, I would say, Johnson probably a better ceiling as a blocker than AB. But, with Godwin active, that might become, if he's active, that might become less important. We're obviously operating from that point. Paul adds, I think the next step for Scotty is more deep cross concepts. Think WASP play concept. Saw some of it, but if he can develop a deep post and a cutback, that'd be huge. Yes, there aren't a lot of breaks even at the top of Scotty Miller's routes. You don't even see a lot of like posts or any in-breaking stuff from Scotty Miller right now. It is a lot of very just linear stuff. So I wonder, you would think he has the skill set for that. I mean, a Chargers game, play action from the shotgun, scored. I cannot remember the play concept right now, but it was like a crossing route for him, I believe, if I'm recalling correctly. I probably haven't seen that play since week 4 or whatever it was, but that's what's in my mind anyways, that he scored, I think from the slot on a crossing route.
Get a good, comeback route, and sell that post route real good and just do that quick hitch turnaround. Ooh, that could be deadly.
There could be a lot of things that Scotty Miller does down the field vertically that expand, even if he's never going to be the short team. Now, and he could be more. I think he could be more. It's just that he's so good at what he does, and he only is going to play a certain amount of snaps. You kind of want to use all those snaps to do what he does best and to take some shots. Yeah, you don't want to target him on 3 bubble screens. Probably he has not been like great after the catch either. That's not been they tried a little bit last year. Maybe it's in his wheelhouse still, and he just needs a larger sample size. I just don't think that's going to happen in Tampa Bay. So you kind of he's not going to get a manufactured touch guy, sort of like Mike Evans. They're not going to get all those manufactured touches that other guys get. I love talking about some of these concepts and some of the more intricate roles of these receivers. This is what sets Pewter Report apart from the others in the business, is the ability to kind of go analyze the details and break things down a little bit. And one of the ways that we do that, one of the platforms we do that on, Josh, is Spotify Green Room. Our partnership with them has been really, really awesome. The Pewter Report account over at Spotify Green Room. What do you have cooking there? I know you spend a lot of time in there, and Bucs fans have gotten to know you very well on that platform. What do you have cooking for this week as Bucs training camp is looming?
We're gonna do kind of a little bit what we're doing here. We're gonna start breaking down some of these position battles, some of these training camp battles. Some of I want to know what the fans and what Bucs fans are really looking forward to most. I want to kind of pick their brain a little bit and build upon what are they looking forward? Are they looking forward to preseason games being back? Are they looking for a full training camp, going to training camp? I want to understand more about the fan experience having a full offseason, because it's different this year, because last year all of it was taken away from us. So I want to know what they're feeling as Super Bowl champions heading into because I know the feeling, I know the feeling headed into training camp as defending champions with a still very strong roster going. And I want to know what they're feeling. I want to know what the level is, what the attitude and what the mindset is, and kind of break down some of this training camp talk as well. So should be a good show. We'll do that tomorrow night.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Spotify Green Room. If you follow Pewter Report in there, you don't have to worry about exactly when the show times are. We'll post them, and then you'll get an invitation when we go live, so you get a notification, so you don't miss any of the Bucs content and coverage that we're providing over on Spotify Green Room. So go over, make yourself an account, follow Pewter Report, and get caught up on all the latest Bucs stuff. And in season, that's when it gets really fun. Training camp. There's going to be some things on the podcast, just full disclosure. There's going to be some things on the podcast we hear, see that we can't say on the podcast maybe, but then we might say them on Spotify Green Room. If we get a little group in there that's interested in some inside scoopage, we talk a little bit more loosely in there. Let's put it that way. I probably shouldn't advertise that, but here's that's the truth.
The great conversation between Mickens and
Darden.
Darden. That was a great little room that night.
Yes, yeah, for sure. Oh, Paul has the answers for us. He has seen this touchdown versus the Chargers. He might have just checked it for us. No, Paul. To Scotty was nice. Was a verticals concept out of 3x1. I remember the 3x1. Who was the single receiver side? I think it was Evans, but variation with strong side number 1 running the quick in underneath. Interesting. I have to go back and look at that play. I don't remember necessarily seeing it a bunch, at least with that personnel maybe, but fun stuff for sure. No, it's going to be the battle to watch, right? The whole wide receiver room is going to be, I can't wait to see Darden in training camp. We haven't, remember, he missed mini camp. So we really haven't he was great at rookie mini camp. And he just tore up at that level, I felt like. And then you wanted to see him against better competition. We didn't get to see him at any, the one-on-ones with the top corners and regular mini camp because he was injured. And then Thursday, I think he did practice that week. But it was not what we're used to seeing, I would say, or what we had been used to seeing. You hadn't been going full speed and everything like that on the Thursday practice. So I can't wait for those matchups just in general at that position. The last thing I'll touch on before we move to the other position, skill group positions, is Justin Watson. I actually entered mini camp and I was like, all right, Justin Watson, if he does anything, and if he's on the special teams units when they run him, it's a good sign for him. And I didn't see him on any of the special teams units. Like, they were still running the same guys, and he's played wing in the past on punt team, and Mike Edwards was still over there. And I forget who was the other guy. Somebody had replaced him. I have it in my notes, and the other right wing had replaced Andrew Adams, and they were rolling with those guys, and that was it. And so he wasn't out there for that. It's early, and we'll see what training camp holds, but if you're Justin Watson, it's not a Tyler Johnson situation. And Justin Watson, by the way, also did not ball out on offense in minicamp either. Far from it. He had couple drops, I think. And so if you're him, you have to – it's special teams. You can't – there's no hope like Tyler Johnson anymore. This is year 4 for Watson, I think. And so there's no hope that, we'll develop into – no. You're a special teams guy. Are you valuable enough in that role? He's one of their leading tacklers on special teams, or I think he was their leading tackler last year. Are you valuable enough in that role that they don't want to find out what life in special teams is like without you, or are you just another guy that they're going to replace? Because if so, you probably don't have a chance of making it.
John, you ever see Invincible? I'm sure you have.
I did years ago. Yeah, I don't really
He needs to be Vince Papale on special teams.
There you go.
This training camp, if he's going to make the roster.
That's right.
He just has to be outstanding, playing out of his mind on special teams. And every time he gets a chance to go out there and catch balls, can't drop anything. He's got any shot of trying to make this team as a team's 7th wide receiver, which is just it's a lot. I mean, we're already talking about potentially, and it's a great segue into potentially who might the 4th tight end be if they keep 4 tight ends. So I mean, if you're going to keep 7 wide receivers, you really have to have this guy doing absolutely everything necessary, everything possible that he can for you to just say, we can't cut this guy. We got to find a way to keep him on the team and shortchange yourself at every other position, including 4th tight end.
Yeah, and that's one we'll talk about as well. Nocturnal's Tech Talk says, first preseason in many years that I'm excited about. Can't wait for this year to get rolling. Every Bucs fan should feel this way, man. I trusted Vorbeck says August 14th can't come fast enough. Completely agree. I think that's the game, right? That's the first preseason game. You got it kind of circled and everything that that's going to be one that everybody's going to want to watch. I can't wait to see the rookies play with the starters. Our backfield is going to be very exciting to watch. Agreed. It's going to be fun.
Everyone, we'll talk about this tomorrow night at let's do 8:30 tomorrow night. Paul, is that good for you? Come on here and talk and chop shop, break down X's and O's with me. So download the Green Room app on Spotify. Do it right now.
That's right. Yeah, so it's going to be this tight end battle. Is going to be probably the quickest that we can touch on. Right, the top 3 are obviously set in stone. I think the practice squad rules allow Tanner Hudson to still be present on the practice squad, right? Even though he's had a couple of years of experience at this point.
Correct. Yeah. So it looks like it's going to be the same as last season, where you'll be able to have veterans on the practice squad. You'll have the capability to bring them up and send them back down. So it's looking 16-man practice squad. The only thing I think we're unsure of right now is the IR rules. Remember last year, you could put someone on IR for as little as 3 weeks and then bring them back. I think that's one of the things that we're waiting to find out if it's going to be as similar as last year at the end of training camp. But yeah, 16-man practice squad. Veterans can be on there. Doesn't matter how many accrued seasons. So him and the next position we'll talk about both have opportunities to make that team.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the running back group is kind of where there's going to be all this attention. It's going to start with RB1, right? Leonard Fournette, Ronald Jones. Everybody wants to know who's going to start the season and then who's going to take the lion's share of the carries. What do you think at this point? We are 6 days out from training camp. What's your prediction? You just wrote about this actually recently.
I did actually. Go check that out on the Camp Battles running back. Outside linebackers came out today, so if you haven't checked that out, go check that out as well. But, playoff Lenny is still so fresh in everyone's mind. And everyone, that's what – I mean, it's a what have you done for me lately? Mm-hmm. And, recency bias. I think everyone thinks that playoff Lenny is the guy. He's going to be the guy, right? He showed he could be the guy. Why is he going to be the guy? And I just think that Ronald Jones is just such a more explosive, dynamic runner, true, pure runner, that it just makes sense to have him out there on early downs. And now early downs is also his weakness, right? Because he's not a third down guy. He can't has very large difficulty in pass blocking, pass protection, and he's not a great catcher, natural catcher out of the backfield. But to have him in there first, second down, and if it's a short yardage situation, then you go with your guy Leonard Fournette. It's a way to keep each other. It's a way to keep each other fresh throughout the season as well. And also, if it's a longer situation, you're talking about third and 5, 3rd and 6. Maybe you send a guy out like Gio. The running back group is very fascinating too, because you also have Keyshawn Vaughn, and other than him skipping a day of OTAs, Bruce Arians has had great things to say, even going as far as he says he's going to have a breakout season. And trying to get all 4 of these guys on the field and get them all touches and get them all snaps, and especially at running back. It's not a wide receiver you can just throw out there. Running back, especially a guy like playoff Lenny, he needs the ball to get going, to get fed, to start getting warmed up before he really starts blowing out. So it's going to be interesting to see how they manage these guys' reps, how they manage these guys' snaps, not just in the preseason, but also once we get into normal game days. But I think Rojo's a guy right now that I'm going to put my money on as going to be named the starting running back.
Yeah, I agree with you that I think Rojo is going to be the guy that starts the season. The talent is just going to intrigue them enough to give them one more crack at this thing. Paul says sell your playoff Lenny stocks. I mean, yeah, that's probably the smart play. At the same time, I see Rojo blow it and Lenny get back in the conversation because of that. And they feel the reliability factor with him. Yeah, that's possible, I think. That's something that's going to be considered. He's not a great catcher. About Rojo might be the understatement of the year. That matters. Bruce Arians has always kind of gravitated toward backs that could catch the football and made an impact in the passing game. That matters. And the guys that frustrate him and slow and hurt that aspect of the Bucs offense tend to get put in the doghouse. History is an indication of that happening in other places that he's been. And so that's where I think it's just a tough call with Rojo. Yeah, he could be the starter. Yeah, he's the best running back, but it doesn't mean it'll stay that way, and not much has stayed consistent about Rojo's career so far. So it will be the battle to watch during training camp for sure, especially for that number 1 spot. Here's the thing. Nocturnal's Tech Talk brings it up. Rojo and Lenny will be battling while Giovanni is going to beat one out due to his catching ability. At the end of the day, Arians, he's told us straight up he values pass catching and pass protecting at the running back position, and he values it a ton. He was going to take Antonio Gibson in the second round if Antoine Winfield Jr. hadn't been there. Antonio Gibson had like 39 carries his whole career at Memphis. Like, he just thought he was that good as a receiver. He was going to take him in the second round. What was he, the 45th pick or something? Like, that's where Winfield was taken. That's where he was going to take this guy. He values that skill set a ton. David Johnson was the coming out of college. Like, that was a guy Bruce Arians loved, and obviously he did it all. But he was another guy that had a wide receiver background, and he played in the slot a ton. And he hasn't had a guy like that in Tampa Bay. He didn't have a guy like that last year in Tampa Bay at all. Giovanni Bernard is just a totally different cat than Rojo and Lenny. I hope Giovanni Bernard doesn't make me look bad and shows Bucs fans just what I mean about how different he is in the passing game than those guys. Even little things that fans will miss sometimes on, like, it's an incompletion. Well, fans might just think of it as an incompletion or maybe even call it a bad throw, but a lot of time it's Rojo not being where he should be, or Lenny not being where he should be, or not being there on time, or not getting their head around, or not getting their hands up. Gio is really, really good at all the little details that most people don't even think about when they're watching a football game. And that's going to make a big difference. And it wouldn't surprise me if he ends up stealing a lot of snaps because of it. Certainly not in games where they're whooping the other team, but he's going to steal some snaps because of it, I think.
He's also an underrated rusher, too. I mean, he put up 400 yards last year as a secondary running back behind one of the league's worst offensive lines. So he's not going to get you a 1,000-yard season, but he can definitely steal into not just some of the pass protection and the pass catching duties, but also as a runner, he might steal. Especially if you. I think that's the biggest complaint I've heard with Bucs fans is Rojo. If you leave Rojo out there, it's almost telling the defense that you're gonna, that you're only gonna run it. You're not gonna pass it on first or second down. He's out there. It's too much of a tell. And if you have Giovanni Bernard out there, it's almost telling the defense that you're gonna pass it because you're gonna use him in pass protection. And if you leave,
but Gio's not a slouch runner either. He's one of the worst O lines in the league, and I think he could offer something there.
James White, who everyone was screaming for, including myself, is a worse runner than Giovanni Bernard.
Yeah.
So Giovanni Bernard is one of the most consistent pass catchers that hasn't caught less than 30 balls since he's entered the league. And we've already talked about his prowess as a pass blocking back. But
right. Yeah.
I think we might see a lot of game plan, again, with the game plan specific. But there's just, when you have this much talent, and on the roster, it allows you to go in from week to week and look at the matchup. Okay, this is a really stout run defense. Do we want to be more physical with them? Well, we'll give the ball to Rojo and break them down. I mean, not Rojo, sorry, Leonard Fournette, break them down a little bit. And then once we beat them up with Lenny, now we throw Rojo in there and boom.
See, I'd almost look at that the opposite. To me, I'd rather have Rojo in there for the games you're going to run a lot and Lenny in there for the games where you might want to be more pass heavy because he's going to be more likely to be an impact guy than Rojo in that regard. And Ronald Jones, frankly, runs harder and breaks more tackles than Leonard Fournette. He's a more runner, in my opinion. So that's how I would see it. Ace Andrews, that's a good question. Do you think that all this is overemphasized? Who cares who's running back one, considering – Bruce Arians hasn't shown that he's married to any running back being the bell cow back, so to speak. Yeah. I sort of overrated, but also because they're both are going to play, but also it clearly mattered last year, though, even though we make fun of, there were times where Leonard got carries. Rojo was clearly the guy and produced as such. So for fantasy football owners, yeah, I think it will matter. It will still be crazy when it'll still be maddening to them when Bruce Arians plays Leonard Fournette out of the blue for a game for 20 snaps where Rojo plays 15 or 10. That will drive them crazy, but there was still a clear-cut top back last year, top producing back. And so when we talk about it in terms of that, I think that still matters, even though, Rojo's never going to be a 300 carry back for Bruce Arians. That's not going to happen. So, yeah, there's some truth to it, Ace, but I think there's still, worth discussing for those reasons that Rojo still probably would be the guy.
And I agree. I think Rojo's going to probably be the guy as well. Again, I mean, he was last year. I think he will be again this year. It might be split up a little bit different. Recency bias. What playoff Lenny, keep calling him that. What Leonard Fournette did in the playoffs is still going to be fresh in the coaches' minds too. He proved it in when it counted the most. The moment's not too big for him. You heard in the latest current of episode of The Current, Tom Brady speak to that as well. There's some guys who, they rise to the occasion, they elevate, and Leonard Fournette's one of those guys to elevate, and coaches aren't going to forget that. Teammates aren't going to forget that. So it might buy him a little bit more leeway. At the end of the day, all of these guys are probably off the roster next year. If Rojo has another great season, he's going to command money. The Bucs probably are going to pay him. Leonard Fournette probably doesn't stick around. And then Giovanni Bernard, aging veteran, do you bring him back? The one guy that we haven't talked about as much is Keyshawn Vaughn. And that's the true wild card in this backfield is what can this – because if you look what he did at Vanderbilt, running behind, I think it was the 148th ranked offensive line in the SEC. And then you go back and watch the tape of what he did to LSU. Whew, I mean, the boy showed that he showed that he's got it and that he can handle it. It's, obviously getting off to a terrible start last year, getting COVID right away, in training camp and not having a true training camp off season like that, but Bruce is like what we've seen so far, working out in the off season. I don't know. What do you think, John? Are we sleeping on Keyshawn Vaughn?
Well, right now, the Keyshawn Vaughn's not much more than an insurance policy for the Bucs. And speaking of insurance policies, you're going to want to make sure you go over to Briar Greaves Insurance. You don't stay in business for over 30 years if you aren't doing something right. Briar Greaves does a lot of things right, but none more than giving exceptional personal service to their insurance customers. We all need insurance, whether it's life, homeowners, auto, or even commercial insurance. Briar and Sam Greaves and their staff are the best in the area and big Bucs fans. It will literally take you 10 minutes to get a quote or compare your current policy, and that 10 minutes could turn into hundreds of dollars in savings. Don't wait. Call Briar Greaves today at 813-876-4166, 813-876-4166, and find out how much money you can put back in your pocket. 30 years in business and Bucs season ticket holders. Call Briar or Sam today. Yeah, Keyshawn Vaughn is.
Hold on, before you go into it, I just got to say, heck of a transition.
That's what we do. That's what we do on the Pewter Report podcast. That's what we do. What can I say? But Keyshawn Vaughn, yeah, right now it's like, okay, if he can get over the fumbles and get over the drops, then we've got maybe a guy who can contribute, be a third down back eventually. Maybe he could be a part of a committee backfield. Those, to me, are probably the ceilings with him. Not dissimilar to what I thought pre-draft or going into the draft. I thought that was about as good as it would get probably for Keyshawn Vaughn in the NFL. I still feel that way. Maybe I feel a little bit less likely that he hits that ceiling, but maybe I'm being too judgmental based off a small sample size. And I like his mentality. Honestly, he kind of has an edge to him. He's a confident dude. I kind of like that about him. I think that there could be something there with that. So, man, I'm anxious to see him because of the level of responsibility he will have had to have taken with his own game, right? Like the stuff he needs to get better at is like catching the football, just straight up, ball security, just straight up, like, pass protecting, the mental, how quickly can you progress through things, your technique and taking on blocks. That's going to be huge to watch that in backs on backers for him. And then obviously special teams, whether he contributes as a kick returner or whether he contributes as just a coverage guy. You can't be the fourth running back on the team and ever be active on game days unless you're a great special teams contributor. He's got a long way to go in that regard, obviously, because that wasn't a big role for him last year. But if he proves himself in that way, and he's got 3 preseason games on his side that he didn't have last year to prove it, then he could be active on game days. Then you're talking about, all right, like somebody gets hurt, somebody has the fumble, somebody's the Gibson drop. You Keyshawn Vaughn 5 snaps here, And so then you have a chance to start flashing and making an impact a little bit. And there were times certainly where that happened with him last year. He caught a touchdown. He looked good in Detroit running the football. Bruce Arians has said, I think he could be a lead back for us. We'll see if that's lip service or not, but he's going to be one of he and Tyler Johnson to me are the 2 guys that we've talked about so far, and Darden obviously as well, that I can't wait to see. Leonard Rojo, I think that it's a fun matchup to talk about, but I don't know if we're going to find out in camp. It's going to be hard to say we're going to find out in camp. There's not a position you learn less about than a pure running back, and that's what those guys are. They have pass catcher and Giovanni Bernard now. There's not a position you learn less about in camp than the running back position, especially in the team drills. So we're going to have to wait and see with those guys. But ultimately, Keyshawn Vaughn, a lot to prove in camp, and a lot of it's going to come on special teams in the preseason as well. So can't wait to watch him.
And it's funny, too, because the things that you touched on, ball security and pass protection, was one of the things that attracted to them in the first place, because he was great with ball security and one of the best pass protectors in college. The thing that, what you said is, they think he can be a lead back, and for the team. And it brings me back to when he got drafted, and Jason Light said that they had a 2nd-round grade on him the year prior. So if you would have came, they thought about taking him in the 2nd round if he would have came out the prior year, because he came back, had the atrocious offensive line. He kind of fell down a little bit, which was still a bit of an early pick for some people. Some people thought it was really early in the 3rd round, but it just shows the confidence they have. And then obviously Bruce coming on and telling you that he thinks he's going to have a breakout year. Yeah, just shows the confidence that they still have in this kid, even after an up and down season. So, like you said, I'm excited to see what he can do, what some of these offensive skill players can do going into camp next week.
Yeah, when your coaches believe in you, even at their age of these players, I think that means a lot, and I think that shouldn't be understated. That's important, and I think the Bucs have really had Keyshawn Vaughn's back. A lot of drops, a lot of fumbles in a very small sample size. It'd be easier to be a little frustrated, but they've really consistently stood by him. So we'll see if that ends up mattering. Bucs Time 12 says, why do I feel like getting home insurance all of a sudden? Hey, give him a call. Give Brian Grooves a call, Bucs Time. I'm telling you, they might be able to help you save some money for sure. All right, let's talk about the quarterback position. We've got an interesting battle for number 2, right? We can call it a battle, I guess, but Blaine Gabbert, Kyle Trask, I think we both – I'll speak for myself and let you speak for you, but I expect Blaine Gabbert to win that job. What I want to know is I want to come out of the preseason and I want to be able to say, all right, Gabbert's the number 2. He's experienced. They're trying to win Super Bowl this year. That experience could matter if something happened. He'll be the 2nd quarterback active on game days, yada, yada. I get it. But Kyle Trask, he might be better than Blaine Gabbert. Already. That might be true already. Might not have the experience. Maybe the mental stuff needs to come along. The communication stuff still needs to come along. But, I saw enough in preseason to think Kyle Trask, he could be better than Blaine Gabbert if something happened to Tom Brady.
Don't say that around Bruce and Jason.
I know, or Scott.
Yeah, you might lose some credibility there. But, no, I think, it is coming down. You look at some people want to say it's a battle between Griffin and Gabbert, those two. But you just look at the contract and you can tell that Gabbert's going to be the guy who's going to stick around. And, it's going to be Brady, Gabbert, Trask. And one thing, we recently spoke with Griffin and you guys spoke with him here on the Pewter Report podcast. What was it, 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago, I think, yeah.
I spoke with him early in the offseason. I asked him the question straight out, with Trask coming in and with this group of quarterbacks, are you comfortable if you have to play on the practice squad Is that something that you're comfortable in doing? And he said any way you can help this team, and I don't think it's lip service coming from Ryan Griffin. I don't think if he's offered a number 2 job, sure, but I don't think he's going to go somewhere to be the number 3. I think he'll come back here and be the quarterback on the practice squad if the Bucs will have him, and help with the development of Kyle Trask. But I think by season's end, Trask will probably overtake Gabbert as the number 2 quarterback on this roster. Just the skills alone. Gabbert's got the smarts, but like you said,
if it doesn't happen by week 1, though, it's out, right? I mean, like, there's no way, because once in the season, Trask won't have any chance for reps. It'll be all the Blaine Gabbert show as the number 2 guy. I don't think he can overtake him once the season starts, unless Blaine Gabbert plays and sucks. That's the only way I think that there's a change there.
That's a thing too, and I kind of wrote about it in our round table. The Bucs have the easiest schedule, right, in the league, and there might be some of these games, and you look back to what the 2007 Patriots did when they had a pretty easy schedule following their Super Bowl win and having this loaded roster. There might be some games that we might see, like Detroit games early in the schedule and later down the schedule where Brady might be out by halftime, and we might get to see Kyle Trask. We might get to see Blaine Gabbert. We might get to see some of these younger guys going to the game. Fingers crossed.
That'd be great. Yes. And Scott would love to see Blaine Gabbert play, I'm sure. That luscious hair, the luscious locks, for sure. Someone said, Paul Vo says, I can't wait for the Trask era. He might be the only person that believes that. I mean, not a knock on Trask, just like if you're wishing away the Brady era,
don't do it.
That's a bold strategy. Bucks Time 12 wants to know, will Brady make the team? Great question. Really tough. We actually should have probably titled this podcast, Will Brady Make the Team? That would have that would have been our focus point. Yeah, we had huge views, right? Exactly. So Michael wants to know how much. What's that?
Lost all credibility, but
I know, yeah. Yeah, a lot of views, no credibility. Michael Anderson wants to know, how much will Trask play in the preseason games? It's a good question, but one we don't know the answer to yet. We don't know how coaches will approach these 3 preseason games. My guess is, though, you'll see Brady a little bit in the first game, maybe a drive or 2, and you'll see the starters and then I would guess you'll see Gabbert and Trask. If it's a real competition, maybe you'll see one start, Gabbert, and then Trask starts starts game 2 or plays game 2 or as the second quarterback in game 2, and then they flip flop and Gabbert gets 2 opportunities to be QB2 or QB1 in the third game. That would be my guess, but I bet Brady plays a drive or 2, or maybe not at all in the first game, maybe a quarter in the second game, maybe not even that much, and then really after that, I mean, I would say. Yeah, game 3, he's not going to play at all. I guarantee.
No, it's going to be interesting because going back and when we had 4 preseason games, we would look at it. You'd have a little bit. Maybe they skip game 1, play a little bit in 2, and then the third game was a dress rehearsal, and then it's just Jags all Jags in the fourth game. Well, now with only 3, it's going to change up a little bit. I think because the second game is against a team like the Tennessee Titans. I think Brady might play a little bit longer because I think he might want to get up just a little bit to play Mike Vrabel, especially after the ending of his Patriots tenure happened.
He ain't going to care about. That's the team he was talking about, though. That's the team he was talking about on that.
Oh, you dropping? Are you dropping it?
I'm not dropping. I'm just saying that's what it was. Like people can call me a liar or say I'm wrong or whatever, but no, I believe my boy Ben Albright. He said it, and I believe him. And Rich Eisen has opined the same thing. And yeah, I mean, it's the only team that makes sense when you really think about it. The team Brady was talking about that had that MFer ahead of him, that was the Titans. That was Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill's 79 passing yards or whatever it was, 75 passing yards
He's got better numbers than Mahomes the last year. What are you talking about, John?
Ryan Tannehill's 75 passing yards in that playoff win against Tom Brady and the Patriots did not inspire awe from the GOAT. So, yeah, that's a team. So it'll be fun.
That kid lucky got Derrick Henry behind him.
I think Tannehill's played well. Don't get me wrong; he did not play well in that game, and he certainly was not the catalyst for that win at all. So I mean, yeah, but I think he's played well for sure.
Oh, is that good?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would have probably taken Brady. I think hindsight's 20/20, but yeah, I probably would have taken Brady beforehand.
I think the third game is where you'll see most of the back guys start that game. So
this is interesting, and we'll use this to kind of close things out here. Marissa wants to know your thoughts on the MCL issue and if the Bucs should get penalized. I researched this. I'm not sure if you have, but technically, yes, they should get penalized. I think because it says in the rules that I saw quoted in an article, it was quoted, so I'm assuming that's what they actually say in the article. It's not lying. Hard to know in today's world. But in the article that I saw, I thought that it made it clear that even if the player does not miss practice, if there is a significant injury, then it needs to be detailed, needs to be included in the report, even if they don't miss practice and they're a full participant. Clearly, this would qualify if you played with it in the season. I don't know where they could get around that. Now, the question is, can anybody prove that? Can the league prove it? When it was torn, I mean, I guess he got surgery after, but will they be? I don't know how that process works. What they have access to be able to see. And
can they get plausible deniability? We knew Brady, had a sore knee, but we didn't know it was an MCL. Brady didn't tell us. He went to outside. I mean, there's tons of ways for them to get out of it. Technically, yes. When a player has a serious injury, it needs to be put on the injury report. But we saw the same thing with Cam Brate, 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
He was injured and played the season with a full injury and never was on the report. Same thing with JPP. I mean, JPP said he played with a 60 to 70% knee, the entire season, and he wasn't. So I mean, teams.
Yeah, he was on there though.
Not every game though.
Every week, JPP was on the injury report like all season long. Yeah. He just was. He didn't participate. He didn't even practice most of the season, bro.
I know he didn't, but I mean,
JPP, yeah, he was playing game days, and that was it.
And veteran, Sue practiced only twice.
No, he was on there with the knee. He was on there with the knee.
I wasn't sure if he was on there every week.
He was on there, but yeah, Brady wasn't. So I think, Marissa, they probably will get some type of penalty. I would guess it's like just a fine, but maybe I don't know. I have to look the history of that kind of.
It's Brady.
It's all Brady.
Dock him a draft pick and find Brady $500,000 and take his rings away. And
we'll see. We'll see what happens. I don't know how they're going to treat that. It's really all about whether they can prove anything or not. And I don't know if we know that yet. Thomas Arbuckle says, "Let's go black and gold." I appreciate the support for the Steelers, Thomas. You might be in the wrong place, but I appreciate sports. Steelers sign Melvin Ingram. Let's go. Tony says Pittsburgh will finish third in their division. I like the optimism. Not sure it'll be that high. We'll see.
I gotta agree with Tony. I gotta agree with Tony there.
It's possible for sure. Thomas also would like us to know that Brady sucks, so he's definitely in the wrong place. Thank you, Thomas. Maybe at some point go back and watch the 2020 season, Thomas, and you might change your mind for sure. So that's good stuff. It's been fun. Brady offensive group training camp is going to be fun. Yeah, there isn't a lot of roster spots made up for grabs, or definitely not starting spots up for grabs at least, but there's going to be a lot of player development to watch with Trask and Darden and Tyler Johnson and Keyshawn Vaughn. There's going to be all eyes on those guys. And guess what? On a team this good and this set in stone, those guys are going to get to play a lot and get a lot of reps. So we're going to learn a lot about them during the preseason that we couldn't learn last season because of how limited the opportunities were. So it's going to be fun. Tomorrow on the show, we carry on the preview series. We go O-line and D-line, and we take a look at the Bucs on both of those sides of the ball. The camp battles, O-line number 9, the last O-lineman that they'll probably roster, we guess. That spot's up for grabs. We'll look at the defensive line. You've got a hot take. You're not going to be on the show. Matt Matera will be on the show with me, I believe, tomorrow. But you've got a hot take on the defensive line. I saw your article. Go back and check out his defense and Josh's defensive line preview on pewterreport.com. He's got a hot take in there on a guy who could be on the bubble that I don't buy. But we'll see what Matt thinks tomorrow on the show as we talk O-line and D-line and look at those positions. And then on Wednesday, we are going to talk about the defensive backfield, linebackers and DBs. We're going to talk about and the camp battles that could be happening there. And then Thursday, we've got a fun show lined up. I don't know. We might deviate from what you think is the show topic, Josh, because about an hour before the show, I had a fun show topic kind of trickle through my mind, and I might just surprise y'all with it on Wednesday and be like, hey, change your plans. Here's what we're doing. But it's going to be like a full staff show, I think, on Thursday. So
I've already got my head wrapped around who the topic could be. So, I mean.
Yeah, well, hey, Tony thinks Tom Brady's coming on the pod. So, yeah, Tony, that's a possibility. Let's just say that's a possibility. Let's just say that.
Fingers crossed, right?
Yeah, check in on Thursday to see if Tom Brady is on the Pewter Report podcast, please. That would be great. Nah, y'all watch anyway. Y'all are great.
Stick with Thursday's topic. It will directly the person I'm thinking of will directly correlate to tomorrow's topic. So watch tomorrow's for sure.
I don't know what you just said.
I don't know either.
We need to get off this show.
I was not trying to give away Thursday's topic because you said it might not be topic, but
right. It's going to be something different. I don't think you know what we said was going to be Thursday's topic. I might just change it up. because I've got an idea that I think is going to be a ton of fun to talk about. And it's going to be related to something that happens in another sport on Wednesday. There's your hint. There's the hint for everybody. You've got your hint. You've got it in mind. That's your hint for Thursday's show topic. It's going to be fun. So anyway, appreciate y'all tuning in, jumping in here with us as always on another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.